I should have known something was wrong the moment Olivia walked into my office that morning, wearing my wife's perfume. Not just any scent, Midnight Peony, a rare French bottle I brought back from a business trip to Paris 5 years ago. My wife, Cassandra, wore it only on special occasions. Romantic anniversaries. Black tie galas. The night we conceived our son. And now it was lingering around Olivia Chambers, my wife's best friend since college, as if it belonged to her. I didn't say anything, of course. Not right away. That's the thing about being blindsided, your instincts scream, but your logic tries to stay polite. "Morning, Jack," she said with that buttery voice of hers, sliding the door closed behind her. No knock, no assistant checking. Just her, uninvited, too familiar. She wore white that clung like wet silk, paired with a smile that was trying too hard not to look hungry. "Olivia," I replied, nodding toward the guest chair across from my desk. "What brings you to my office downtown? Thought you hated driving into the city." She sat without asking, crossing one leg over the other like she owned the place. "Well, I was just around the corner, brunch with a client. Thought I'd drop by. Haven't seen you in weeks. Missed our little chats." There were no little chats. Not between us. Not since last year when she caught me alone at the lake house with a bottle of scotch and a shattered spirit after Cassandra and I had our worst fight in 13 years of marriage. Olivia had stayed too long that night, said too many things I pretended not to hear, touched my hand 1 second too long. I kept my hands folded now, fingers interlocked like a cage. "You should have called. I'm in the middle of quarterlies. The foundation's expansion proposal just came in, and..." "Still the responsible one," she interrupted, her eyes dancing around the office, "photos of my son, degrees, family vacations, awards." She stared a moment longer at the one of me and Cassandra in Aspen, kissing in front of the cabin fireplace. Then her voice turned soft, mock regretful. "Is she still treating you like an ATM with a heartbeat?" I felt a twitch in my jaw. "Don't." Olivia tilted her head, playing innocent. "I'm just saying. A man like you deserves more than what Cassie gives. You've built an empire, Jack. Half the hospitals in Chicago have your name on their donor walls. Yet, she still talks to you like you're a house servant who forgot to fluff the pillows." "She's my wife," I snapped, sharper than I intended. There was a beat of silence. Then she smiled, slow, knowing, like she'd just hit a nerve she'd been aiming at for months. "Not for much longer," she said. The air went still. "What's that supposed to mean?" Olivia stood, walked to the window, looking down at the street below as if the answer were written in the motion of taxis and coffee runners. "You should talk to your lawyer, Jack. Today." I rose from my chair. "What the hell are you talking about, Olivia?" She turned to face me, and her face was unreadable for a split second. Then she softened, touched her fingertips to my shoulder like we were longtime friends again, like she hadn't just sent a tremor through my life. "I shouldn't have said anything," she murmured. "Just, promise me you'll be careful. Cassandra's been different lately. You know that." And then she left. Just like that. No explanation. No follow-up. By the time the door clicked shut behind her, I realized something far worse than her perfume lingered. A trap. I didn't go home that night. Not because I was afraid, I'm not the kind of man who runs from shadows, but because I needed time to think. To remember. To re-examine every glance, every fight, every absence Cassandra had explained away with charity board meetings or yoga retreats. And Olivia. God, Olivia had always been close, but when had she become something more dangerous than a friend? I drove out to the lake house instead. The one I bought before I ever made my first $1 million. Before I married Cassandra, before I hired Olivia's husband to manage our investments, before I learned the hard way that money doesn't just buy comfort. It buys masks. It was just after midnight when I pulled up, silence settling around me like a shroud. I poured a drink. Sat by the fire. And did something I hadn't done in months. I thought about trust. Not love, not sex, not betrayal, just trust. That unshakable belief that someone won't ruin you even when given the perfect opportunity. I trusted Cassandra once. I had to. We built everything together, our house in Winnetka, our son's future, our charitable foundation. When she said she loved me, I believed her. When she said she needed time, I gave it. But now her best friend had dropped a loaded sentence in my lap and walked away like she hadn't just detonated my entire sense of reality. The next morning, I went to the law firm that had represented me during the Dempsey Biotech merger last year. Discreet. Ruthless. The kind of firm you called when you needed something buried or exposed. I met with Audrey Linden. 48. Harvard Law. Didn't flinch when I told her I wanted to audit every financial transaction Cassandra had been involved in for the past 18 months, personal, corporate, foundation-based. Anything in particular you're looking for? She asked, tapping a Mont Blanc against her notepad. I don't know yet, I said. But I've got a feeling I'm being played. Audrey leaned back, raised one brow. Played how? I told her about Olivia's visit. About the strange perfume. The sudden shift in Cassandra's behavior. The silence growing between us. I didn't tell her about the worst part, the feeling that I was beginning to question everything I'd built with Cassandra. That maybe she'd never really loved me, only the life I provided. Audrey was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'll need a signed consent to access the Foundation's books. And you'll want to check your prenup. If she's planning a divorce, timing will be everything. She won't file first, I said, maybe too confidently. Audrey didn't argue. But her silence said otherwise. By the end of the week, I had more questions than answers. Cassandra had grown cold at home, distant. But what chilled me more was the way Olivia kept texting me after her visit, innocuous check-ins, selfies at charity events, jokes only we used to share when we were pretending not to flirt. And then, one morning, a courier arrived at my office. No return address. Just a padded envelope. Inside, a USB drive. And a note. You deserve to know. A friend. I stared at it for a long time before I plugged it into the laptop in my private office. There were only 2 files. Both video. Both less than a minute long. I clicked play on the first. What I saw stopped my heart. It was Olivia. In my house. Wearing my wife's robe. In my bedroom. Laughing. With someone holding the camera. A woman's voice. Cassandra. Don't look so serious, she said, chuckling as she adjusted the lens. Then Olivia climbed onto the bed. And the video cut. Just like that. I didn't watch the second file. Not yet. Because I already knew the truth. They were setting me up. And I'd just opened the first door to the trap. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly know, was that I had my own secrets. And I was done playing nice. I didn't sleep the night I received that USB drive. I didn't drink. I didn't even breathe right. I just sat there in my study, the file untouched on my desktop, taunting me like a loaded gun. The first video was damning enough, Olivia in my house, in my wife's robe, laughing into a camera my wife was holding. It was clear. It was cruel. It was calculated. But the second file? That was the one clawing at my sanity. I should have deleted it. I should have tossed the drive into the fireplace and walked away. But curiosity, like betrayal, has a taste. And once it's on your tongue, you crave more, even if it poisons you. I clicked. The screen flickered to life. This time, Cassandra was in the frame. Alone. She looked stunning. Perfect makeup. A tight burgundy dress I didn't recognize. She sat on the edge of our bed with a glass of wine in her hand, smiling in that charming, camera-ready way she always used for gala interviews and press conferences. Then she started talking. Jack's so predictable, she said, swirling the wine. Olivia's right, he still thinks I married him because I loved him. It was the money, always the money. The minute I saw his name on Forbes, under 40 to watch, I knew. She laughed softly. I just had to play the long game. Be the doting wife, pop out a kid, make him feel invincible. But now I'm done playing house. And thanks to my prenup clause, all I need is evidence of infidelity or misconduct on his part, and boom. Half of everything. I leaned forward. My jaw clenched so tightly I thought my molars might crack. Then Olivia's voice entered the frame, off camera. You think he suspects? Cassandra smirked. Please. He's too busy being noble. Let's give it a week or two. I'll find something compromising on his laptop. Maybe an email from you. Something flirty. I'll cry. Act devastated. File for divorce. Play the victim. A pause. Then Olivia said, and if he fights it? Cassandra shrugged. We've got enough on video to bury him in court. You were very convincing. They both laughed. And the screen went black. I don't remember standing up. Or throwing the glass against the wall. Or screaming into the empty room. But I must have. The shards of crystal glistened across the hardwood floor, and my knuckles were bleeding. I sat down again, calmer this time. There was something liberating about knowing the truth. I had proof. They were conspiring. Manipulating me. Plotting a narrative where I'd come out the villain, and they'd walk away with half of everything I'd spent my life building. But I wasn't about to let that happen. They thought I was predictable. Good. Let them keep thinking that. Because now, I had the upper hand. The next morning, I called Audrey Linden again. She picked up on the second ring. Mr. Whitaker. You've got news. Meet me at my lake house, I said. Bring someone you trust with high-level digital forensics. I have a USB drive I want preserved. Securely. Her tone shifted. Understood. I'll be there by noon. I didn't go into details on the phone. I never do. Phones have ears. Lawyers understand. By the time Audrey arrived, along with a silent young man named Felix, who looked like he'd grown up in a server room, I had printed stills from the video and outlined my suspicions on a legal pad. When I played both clips for them, neither spoke until the end. Audrey sat back slowly, lips pursed. If this was submitted in court, the judge would assume you were being unfaithful. That's the narrative your wife is crafting. Except I never touched Olivia, I said. Felix glanced up. You don't appear in either video. They frame you verbally, but there's no physical evidence linking you. Exactly, I said. They've built the setup, but they don't have the crime. Not yet. Audrey leaned forward. So what's the plan? I give them what they want, I said. I pretend to fall for it. Act confused. Distracted. Let them think I'm vulnerable. And when they make their move, I make mine. Audrey raised an eyebrow. You want to play along? I want to rewrite the script, I said. On my terms. The performance began that very night. I returned home, and Cassandra was already in the kitchen, slicing lemons with surgical precision. Her hair was tied back. She wore the same soft robe from the video. She glanced up when I walked in, gave me a cool smile. You're home late. I stayed at the lake house, I said. Needed air. No questions. No concern. No warmth. She poured 2 glasses of wine. Handed me one. I took it and pretended not to notice that she hadn't poured from the same bottle as mine. They were setting the stage. Building the file. Maybe hoping to drug me next. I played along. Over the next week, I made small mistakes on purpose. Left my phone unlocked. Sent myself fake flirty emails from a burner account I created. Kept my laptop password as my birthday. Everything designed to look suspicious but not illegal. Just enough to make them overconfident. I also hired a private investigator. His name was Cole Jennings. Ex-FBI. Clean, quiet, and expensive. I told him to follow Cassandra and Olivia. No confrontation. No scare tactics. Just record everything. Every meeting. Every whisper. Every mistake. He nodded once. They always slip up when they think you're 2 steps behind. By the end of the second week, Cole had collected 3 meetings between Cassandra and a divorce attorney in Lincoln Park. 1 lunch with Olivia and the same attorney. And a bank statement showing Cassandra had transferred $250,000 into a newly opened offshore account in the Caymans. They were accelerating the timeline. Probably figured I was breaking down. Falling for Olivia. Ready to be caught. But I wasn't unraveling. I was watching. Preparing. Planning the exact moment I'd drop the match. Then came the dinner invitation. "Jack," Cassandra said sweetly one evening. "I was thinking maybe we should host a little something this weekend. Just close friends. Olivia, Mark, maybe the Steinbergs. We haven't entertained in so long." A smile I'd grown to hate curled on her lips. Of course she wanted a dinner party. One last performance. One last act before the curtain fell and the lawyer walked in with divorce papers. "Sure," I said, sipping my wine. "Let's give them a night to remember." And I meant it. Because what they didn't know, what neither of them could possibly suspect, was that I'd already invited my own guests. People they wouldn't see coming. Including one man who would change everything. Olivia's husband. Mark. The one piece they'd both forgotten in their chess game. The men who would arrive early. And the men who'd bring a wire. There's a certain chill in the air when you know someone's planning your funeral, especially when they expect you to serve the drinks. Cassandra's dinner party was set for Saturday. She insisted on overseeing everything herself, the flower arrangements, the guest list, the playlist, down to the exact placement of Olivia's wineglass. It was a masterstroke of pretension, and under any other circumstance, I might have admired the effort. But I wasn't the audience anymore. I was the director now. And Cassandra. She was still playing her part, unaware the curtain was about to fall on her performance. The evening began like every other we'd hosted in the past, polished laughter, clinking glasses, and surface-level banter echoing across our polished floors. Everyone looked flawless, exactly as Cassandra intended. But beneath it all was tension, thick, electric. I watched her float through the room in her emerald gown, her smile practiced, her every word precise. She leaned into conversations just long enough to feign interest, then glided away like she was auditioning for some invisible crown. And Olivia. She showed up late, like a woman walking into her own engagement party. Hair curled. Eyes smoky. A tight black dress that did nothing to hide her confidence, or her motives. She caught my eye from across the room, gave me a small, suggestive smile. I nodded, keeping my face unreadable. She thought I was still caught in their little web. Perfect. But what neither of them knew was that one of the other guests wasn't just here for dinner. Mark. Olivia's husband. He arrived 30 minutes early, dressed sharp in a navy suit. He looked tired. Like a man who hadn't slept in days. I met him at the back entrance. No one else saw him come in. He pulled out a small device from his jacket pocket. "You sure you want to do this?" I looked him in the eye. "Do you?" He hesitated. "She's been lying to me for months. Telling me she's mentoring some intern. Working late on meaningless nonprofit work." I wanted to believe her. "But then your PI showed me the videos. I can't pretend anymore." I nodded. "Then it's time we both stop pretending." He clipped the wire onto his button-down and slipped a phone into his inside pocket, camera already rolling. "When you walk in," I told him, "act surprised. Act happy to see everyone. Olivia will be caught off guard. She'll panic. And when she tries to lie, just listen." He nodded once. "Let's end this." By the time Mark stepped into the living room, the mood had settled into its usual artificial warmth. Glasses half full. Plates cleared. Jazz humming low through the Sonos system. Olivia turned from the fireplace when she heard his voice. "Sorry I'm late, babe. You didn't wait for me to start, did you?" The color drained from her face. Everyone turned. Cassandra froze mid-laugh. Her smile faltered for the briefest second before she masked it with a sip of champagne. Olivia blinked. "Mark. I thought you were still in Atlanta." He walked over and kissed her cheek. "I caught the early flight. Wanted to surprise you. You could have heard a pin drop." I watched as Olivia tried to recalibrate, her mind scrambling for a believable excuse. Cassandra's eyes darted between the two of them. She didn't speak. Just observed. Calculating. Mark glanced at me and smiled. Jack, thanks for inviting me. I wasn't sure if Olivia remembered to RSVP for the both of us. Oh, it was Cassandra's idea, I said calmly. She's the planner here. Of course, Olivia said quickly. We just hadn't confirmed yet. But I'm glad you're here. Mark poured himself a drink. So am I. He moved around the room like a detective in disguise, smiling, casual, letting Olivia stew in her own nerves. I saw her grip the stem of her glass tighter with every passing minute. And then, right on cue, Cassandra asked, Jack, could you help me in the kitchen for a moment? I followed her without a word. Once we were alone, she dropped the act. What the hell is he doing here? She hissed, her voice low but venomous. I tilted my head. Who? Mark. Olivia said he was out of town. I smiled faintly. He wanted to surprise her. She narrowed her eyes. Don't play games with me. I leaned in just enough to make her flinch. You're the one who invited him, remember? You said close friends. Her face twisted into something less human, rage, panic, betrayal all at once. She wasn't used to things slipping out of her control. She hated surprises. Good. Relax, I said, stepping back. Maybe he just wanted to be here with his wife. She didn't respond. Just grabbed a fresh bottle of wine and walked back out like a porcelain doll with a crack she didn't want anyone to see. As the evening wore on, the tension grew unbearable. Olivia barely looked at Mark. She avoided his gaze, picked at her food, laughed at all the wrong times. Cassandra was quiet too, unusually so. Her usual charm dimmed, her attention fractured. I could feel them both unraveling. Then Mark struck the match. We were gathered in the living room again. Everyone chatting, sipping drinks. Mark stood and said casually, Hey, Jack, Olivia told me you've been working on a new partnership deal with some boutique firm downtown. What was the name again? She mentioned it during one of your late-night meetings. I turned slowly, raising an eyebrow. Late-night meetings. Olivia coughed. I never said that. He looked at her. Sure you did. Just last week. You were texting Jack at midnight. Something about strategy over cocktails. Everyone turned. Cassandra stared. Olivia froze. It was professional, Olivia said, her voice too high. I mean, Jack and I, we've known each other for years. We talk business. That's all. Mark looked her dead in the eye. Is that all you've been doing, Liv? A long, brittle silence. And then, she snapped. You don't trust me, she spat. After everything. You come in here like some detective, accusing me in front of everyone. You're deflecting, he said coldly. I stepped in, hands raised like a mediator. All right, let's not turn this into a public. But Mark cut me off. No, Jack. Let's turn it into exactly what it is. My wife and your wife have been conspiring to destroy you. And I have proof. Gasps rippled through the room. Olivia's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the hardwood. Mark pulled out his phone and hit play. The video filled the room. Cassandra. The burgundy dress. The smirk. Jack's so predictable. I watched everyone's faces. Horror. Shock. Disgust. And Cassandra. She didn't move. Her entire body went still. Like a statue that had finally cracked too wide. When the screen faded to black, no one said a word. Then Cassandra whispered, barely audible, you were never supposed to find that. I looked her in the eye. But I did. And now, it's your turn to play defense. They say when a bomb goes off, the quiet afterward is the loudest sound you'll ever hear. That silence, after Mark played the video and Cassandra's betrayal exploded into the open, felt like the longest moment of my life. I could feel the weight of every stare, the cold discomfort radiating from people I once called friends. Guests stood frozen in place, like mannequins in designer clothes, unsure whether to run or pretend it hadn't just happened. I didn't move. I wanted it to linger. I wanted Cassandra to drown in the very stillness she used to control so well. She broke first. Cassandra took a step forward, slow and careful, her voice calm but stretched too thin. This is not what you think it is. Her tone was pleading. But the way her eyes darted between the guests and me, calculating, scanning for a foothold, told another story. I tilted my head. Then help me understand. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you and Olivia plotted to manipulate me into an affair I never wanted, only so you could file for divorce and take half of everything I built. Mark crossed his arms. She already hired a divorce attorney. I saw the retainer agreement in her email. Dated 2 months ago. Gasps again. More murmurs. Olivia opened her mouth to object, but this time no one was listening to her. Even her fake tears, usually so convincing, looked desperate now. I turned to Cassandra. Did you honestly think I wouldn't find out? She stepped closer, dropping the mask completely now. Her words were sharper. Lower. You were never supposed to be the victim, Jack. You were the one who built this house like a fortress, who made everyone else feel small just to keep your ego inflated. I was just taking back what should have been mine. There it was. The truth, venomous and bitter, out in the open like poison in the wine. You could have just left me, I said. You could have walked away. She laughed bitterly. And what would I have had? A condo and a settlement. While you parade around the Hamptons with your next assistant. Please. For a second, no one knew where to look. The image of our perfect marriage was shattered, pieces on the floor like the wineglass Olivia had dropped. But I wasn't finished. Not even close. After the guests left, awkwardly, some without saying goodbye, others whispering apologies, I asked Mark to stay. Olivia tried to follow him into the foyer, but he held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. She shrank back like a scolded child. When the front door clicked shut, I poured Mark a scotch, then one for myself. He was quiet, I scanning the empty living room where our lives had just detonated. You okay? I asked. He took a long sip. I don't know. I think I just destroyed my marriage. I nodded. Yeah. Me too. A beat. Then we both laughed, short, bitter chuckles that said more than words could. Thanks for everything, I said finally. But now I need to finish this. He looked at me. What are you going to do? I looked out the window. The city was calm. Lights glowing, taxis weaving through the streets like nothing had happened. I'm going to give them what they want. Just, not how they expect. The next morning, I called my attorney, Margaret Kane, a woman with the instincts of a shark and the patience of a lioness stalking prey. She didn't even let me finish the sentence. So she tried to honey trap you, using her best friend as bait. Exactly. And you didn't fall for it. No. But I made it look like I did. She let out a low whistle. That's cold. It's necessary. All right. We'll need to go on the offensive. We can preempt her divorce filing and file first, with evidence of collusion and intent to defraud. If we push hard enough, we might even get the court to void spousal entitlement on grounds of malicious manipulation. I nodded. Do it. And Jack? Yeah. She lowered her voice. Don't let her know we're filing until the papers are served. And stay calm. Let her think you're still shaken. It'll make the drop hurt more. That evening, Cassandra came into my office. She didn't knock. She never did. She stood at the edge of the room like someone checking the temperature of a pool before diving in. Are we really doing this? She asked. I didn't look up from my laptop. Doing what? Turning into strangers. Ruining everything. I closed the lid. You already ruined everything. She stepped closer. You still don't understand. I wasn't trying to hurt you, Jack. I couldn't breathe in this life anymore. You made all the choices. You wrote the script. I just played along. I leaned back in my chair. So you decided to steal the production rights and cast yourself as the star? She didn't answer. I know about the offshore accounts, Cassandra. Her eyes snapped up. That did it. She wasn't ready for that twist. I continued, the Caymans. The trust you set up in your cousin's name. You were planning to drain funds quietly and disappear. You thought I'd be too distracted by the affair to notice. Her mouth opened. Closed. She backed up a step. I don't. You're not smarter than me, I said flatly. You've just been underestimated too long. But not anymore. She stared at me, stunned. I stood and walked past her, my voice low and even. The divorce papers are coming. You'll receive them Monday. Along with a fraud suit and a petition for full financial control. She turned to face me. You wouldn't dare. I looked her dead in the eye. You dared first. Later that night, I sat alone in the backyard. It was quiet, save for the hum of the city in the distance. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. I know what they did to you. I can help. Attached, a photo. It was blurry, a woman in a parking garage, standing beside Cassandra. The angle suggested a security cam. The timestamp was from 6 months ago. The woman, she looked familiar. But not recent. I stared harder. And then I remembered, she was Cassandra's college roommate. Leah. The one she always said vanished from her life after a fight over money. I'd never thought much about it. Until now. I typed a reply. Who is this? The dots blinked for a moment. Let's just say I've been watching from the shadows. You're not the only one they've hurt. Meet me tomorrow. Midtown. 11 a.m. Parking lot C. And just like that, the story changed again. Because if Cassandra's betrayal was layered deeper than I thought, then maybe this wasn't just about money anymore. Maybe it never was. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Cassandra's face, half regret, half contempt. I saw Olivia's crocodile tears, her hand trembling as she reached for the glass of wine she'd pretended to spill. And now, a new face from the past. Leah. It had been years since I'd heard that name. Cassandra spoke of her only once, offhandedly. She borrowed money and disappeared, she had said, dismissive and irritated, like someone brushing away a fly. But something in her tone back then didn't sit right with me. I'd forgotten all about it. Until now. At 10:58 a.m., I was already at parking lot C in Midtown, parked in a black Range Rover with tinted windows. I chose it for discretion. My usual silver Tesla would have stood out. At exactly 11 o'clock, a black sedan pulled up beside me. The window rolled down. It was her. Leah hadn't changed much, older, sure, but the fire in her eyes was still there. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, no makeup, just clarity. There was no small talk. You don't know half of what they did, she said. Start talking. She got in the passenger seat, glancing around cautiously. I wasn't just Cassandra's college roommate. I was her business partner, and her best friend. We started a consulting agency together after graduation. Small stuff, interior design for new homeowners, boutique rentals. We were scrappy, but we were good. I stayed quiet, letting her keep going. 3 years in, we landed a huge client in Palm Beach. It was our break. Cassandra was the money face, I did the strategy. One day, I wake up and our shared account is empty. $32,000. Gone. She ghosted me. No warning, no apology. Just vanished. I finally spoke. She told me you disappeared after borrowing money. She laughed, bitter. Of course she did. She's always rewriting history to suit her. I tried suing. Got nowhere. Couldn't afford to keep it going. She used the money to hire a better lawyer, probably the same type she's using now. I studied her expression. The pain was real. But so was the resolve. So why come forward now? I asked. Because I've been watching. At first it was curiosity. Then I saw the marriage photos. You. Her. The life she built off betrayal. I wanted to warn you, but I figured you wouldn't believe me. Until I saw the headlines about the party. About the video, I said. She nodded. The cracks are finally showing. I thought maybe now you'd listen. I looked at her. And you want revenge? No, she said quietly. I want justice. For both of us. We talked for over an hour. She told me about the fake accounts Cassandra had opened in their business name. How she used Leah's social security number to apply for a loan. How she'd forged signatures, emails, and even deleted Leah's access from all records. I believed her. Not just because of her eyes, or the way her voice broke at certain points. But because I'd seen what Cassandra was capable of. She's dangerous, Leah said. And she doesn't stop unless someone makes her. I leaned back in the seat. That's what I plan to do. She narrowed her eyes. How? I paused. Then I told her. Everything. From the fake affair with Olivia to Mark's part in the sting. From the hidden cameras to the legal bomb Margaret Kane was preparing to drop. I told her about the offshore accounts, the upcoming financial fraud petition, and even the anonymous tips we'd lined up for the IRS and the state attorney's office. By the end of it, Leah was sitting still, mouth parted slightly. You've been busy, she said. I've had motivation. A beat. Then she smiled. Let me help. That evening, I met with Margaret at her downtown office. Late hours weren't unusual for her. She thrived in the shadows of city skyscrapers, where paper trails were more dangerous than guns. I like her, she said after I introduced her to Leah. She's angry. That's useful. We spent 2 hours cross-referencing timelines, tracking discrepancies in Cassandra's financial history, and drafting a supplemental statement to be filed with our petition. Leah had receipts. Bank statements. Signed contracts. Enough to poke holes in Cassandra's credibility from coast to coast. By the end, Margaret looked up from her laptop and smiled. This woman is about to experience a legal bloodbath. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Cassandra wasn't just a liar. She was a performer. And performers don't panic unless the spotlight turns on them at the wrong moment. The opportunity came faster than I expected. 3 days later, Cassandra held a charity brunch at a country club in Westchester. She claimed it was to raise money for a children's literacy program. In truth, it was just another publicity stunt, a chance to sip champagne and pose for photographers with real estate agents and mid-tier influencers. I sent Leah in. She was nervous at first, but she had a plan. She wore a body cam under her blouse and a hidden mic in her phone case. Her mission was simple: get close. Stir doubt. Say just enough to make Cassandra uncomfortable, but not enough to get thrown out. I waited at Margaret's office with a live feed in front of me. The footage was priceless. Cassandra didn't recognize Leah at first. That alone said a lot. But when she did, you could see her pupils shrink. What are you doing here? Cassandra hissed. Just supporting the kids, Leah smiled. Like you. Amazing how much you've grown since college. I hear you're married now. To a man worth $100 million. Cassandra's eyes darted to the cameras. Not here, she muttered. You look tense, Leah said. Anything wrong? You seem exposed. I will have you removed, Cassandra snapped. I'm sure you will, Leah said, her voice sugary. But before that, you should know, Jack and I had a little chat. Lovely guy. Honest. Unlike some people I knew back in Florida. Cassandra froze. Smile for the cameras, Leah whispered. You're about to be famous for something other than charity. That night, Margaret uploaded the footage to a secure drive. We now had video of Cassandra acknowledging Leah's past and attempting to cover it up at a public event. It wasn't the smoking gun legally, but it painted a picture, a pattern of deception, a trail of manipulation that now stretched back a decade. Combined with the rest of our evidence, it was more than enough. Cassandra's world was collapsing. She just didn't know how fast yet. That Sunday, I invited her to dinner. One last time. She showed up late, in a red dress that used to make me weak. Not anymore. We ate in near silence. Then I slid an envelope across the table. She looked at it, then at me. What is this? Everything, I said. Divorce papers. Financial records. Evidence of fraud. And a little message from Leah. She didn't touch it. Her hand hovered over the envelope like it might burn her. "You think this scares me," she said. "No," I replied. "But what comes next should." She stood slowly, her voice shaking. "You have no idea what you've started." I leaned in, calm. "Neither do you." She left without another word. And I sat there, glass of bourbon in hand, knowing we'd just reached the tipping point. The morning after our final dinner felt like the silence before a storm. I knew she wouldn't go down quietly. Cassandra wasn't the kind of woman who ran, she was the kind who struck back harder. But that night, when she left with that envelope in her trembling hand, I saw something I'd never seen in her before. Fear. Not the petty kind born from being caught in a lie, but the primal, suffocating kind. The kind that creeps into your throat when you realize the walls are closing in and you're out of exits. By 9 a.m., my phone was already buzzing. 3 missed calls from Olivia. I didn't answer. She followed up with a message. "We need to talk. Please. It's not what you think." The irony almost made me laugh. She was the first domino. The bait. The beautiful con artist who didn't realize she'd been used too. I thought about ignoring her again, but then a better idea crept in. Let her talk. Let her believe she still had control. I called her back. She met me at a coffee shop in Tribeca, neutral ground, public, safe. Olivia was dressed down this time, in a faded hoodie and sunglasses too big for her face. She looked tired. Frazzled. Nervous. "Thank you for coming," she said, clutching a paper cup like it was her last link to reality. I didn't respond right away. I just stared. Finally, she cracked. "I didn't know she'd go this far," Olivia whispered. I thought. "I don't know, that we were just trying to scare you into a divorce." "Scare me?" I said, my voice low and even. "That was the plan." She looked away. "It was supposed to be clean. You'd think I cheated, Cassandra would confront you, then she'd file. She said she'd make it worth my while. Pay off my debt. Help me land a design gig in LA. I needed the money, Jack." I leaned back. "So you never slept with me?" She flinched. "No. Of course not. God, no. It was all fake." I already knew that, but I wanted to hear her say it. "She said you'd probably just walk away," Olivia continued, eyes darting. "But then you didn't. You got quiet. You didn't file." She started getting paranoid. "And then, you brought in that lawyer. And that scared her. She said Margaret Kane is a surgical bitch who doesn't lose. Said if she sniffed around too long, it'd all fall apart. That you'd find the offshore stuff. The charity schemes. All of it." I watched her carefully. "She told me to disappear," Olivia added. "Go back to Miami. But I can't. I can't live like this anymore. I thought I could use her. But she used me." Her hands were trembling now. The guilt was real. And I had one more use for her. "You want to make it right?" I asked. She nodded quickly. "Then you're going to wear a wire." Her breath caught. "A wire? Jack, You're the only person she still trusts. She thinks you're weak. She thinks you're on her side. That makes you valuable." She hesitated, but eventually nodded. Okay. Okay. What do you want me to ask?" I slid a folded paper across the table. "Everything. Her instructions. The money. The plan. And ask about Leah." Olivia's eyes widened. "She knows Leah's back. She suspects. And we're going to make sure she confirms it, on record." 2 days later, we had it. Olivia met Cassandra at a private yoga retreat in the Hamptons. Hidden mic in a necklace charm, body cam sewn inside a tote bag strap. The footage Margaret reviewed that night was better than we hoped. She admitted to conspiring with Olivia, Margaret said, eyes sharp as scalpels. She references the staged seduction, the fabricated financial narrative, and even brags about draining 32 grand from Leah's old business. It's the trifecta. I watched Cassandra on screen, her voice calm, like she was planning brunch. She actually said, and I quote, Margaret continued, "Men like Jack always think they're in control until you hand them their own heart on a plate." That line stung, but it also sealed her fate. We filed everything the next morning. The next 48 hours moved like a war plan. Our legal team filed a motion for emergency injunction against asset transfers. Margaret submitted the supplemental evidence, including Olivia's recording, under seal. The IRS contact we'd been feeding began formal investigations. I even sent a personal statement to the board of Cassandra's foundation, complete with documentation of fraud. Then we waited. And sure enough, she cracked. She came to my office unannounced. Red suit. Eyes wild. Lipstick smudged. I stood slowly when she walked in. Margaret was beside me, arms folded. "I want to talk," Cassandra snapped. "Alone?" "No," I said. She turned to Margaret, hissing. "Get out." Margaret smiled coldly. "Not a chance." Cassandra looked back at me. Her voice dropped, low and acidic. "You think you've won?" I didn't answer. "You think Olivia's betrayal hurts me?" "She's nothing. Leah. A ghost. But you," she added, stepping closer. "You betrayed me." I almost laughed. "Betrayed?" I said. "You built our marriage on lies. You tried to ruin me." She bared her teeth in a sick smile. "And I still might." Margaret opened a file. "Actually, you won't. Because if you contest the divorce, if you go public, if you so much as breathe on Jack's assets, we'll go federal. The feds don't like charity fraud. And neither does the state bar, which we've already notified. Your license is on the line." Cassandra stared. "This isn't a negotiation," Margaret added, her voice a scalpel. "This is a settlement." That night, I sat alone in the apartment I once shared with her. The walls felt cleaner somehow. The silence was less oppressive. I poured myself a scotch, neat. My phone buzzed. Text from Margaret, she signed. Another buzz. Email from the board of Cassandra's foundation. "We are initiating an internal audit and placing Cassandra Hunter on immediate administrative leave pending investigation." Then a final buzz. Text from Leah, "She's not who she thinks she is anymore." You did it. I stared at that last one for a long time. Because it wasn't over. Not yet. The final blow was poetic. 3 days later, Cassandra received a certified letter from a former Palm Beach prosecutor turned consultant, hired by us, of course. Enclosed was a statement of intent to reopen Leah's civil case from a decade ago, backed now by new evidence, sworn affidavits, and Olivia's recording. It wasn't about the money. It was about reputation. The thing Cassandra guarded more fiercely than anything else. She called me that night, voice ragged. "What do you want from me?" she asked, not crying, just exhausted. "Nothing," I said. "Just for you to finally be seen for who you are." A long pause. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I never loved you." "Not really." I didn't flinch. "I know. But I almost did," she whispered. "Once." Click. I stared at the phone. No anger. No victory. Just clarity. It's strange how silence feels different once the war is over. Not peaceful, never that, but still. Settled. Like the dust has finally stopped swirling and you can see what's left standing. That morning, I stood by the window of my office overlooking Lower Manhattan. The city pulsed below, cold and indifferent. Just the way I liked it. Cassandra's name was already being scrubbed from her foundation's website. Her face, once plastered across gala banners and legal journals, was vanishing like smoke. And I didn't feel a thing. No triumph. No sorrow. Just quiet. She didn't contest the divorce. Not after Margaret handed her the full playbook, the IRS referrals, Olivia's sworn statement, the pending lawsuit Leah's team was reviving. Cassandra knew it was over. She took the settlement, a modest apartment, no alimony, and just enough cash to vanish into obscurity. She'd never practice law again. Her bar membership was under review, and she had a hearing in 2 weeks. Margaret would be there, front row, smiling politely. As for Olivia, I gave her what she really wanted. A way out. We arranged a design contract with one of my commercial development firms in Miami, clean, quiet, no strings attached. It wasn't mercy. It was leverage. Olivia might have been a pawn in Cassandra's scheme, but pawns still move. And in the end, she'd helped me tip the board. She sent a thank you card the day she left town. Inside, I finally learned the difference between love and survival. I hope you did too. But there was one more move left. Leah. She hadn't come back into my life to hurt Cassandra. That part was just collateral. Leah returned because she wanted closure. She wanted the truth to matter again. And maybe, if I was lucky, she wanted to see who I'd become. We met at the place where it had all started, an old bookstore cafe on 10th Avenue we used to hide in during our Columbia days. The smell of paper and coffee grounds hadn't changed. Neither had she, not really. Still sharp. Still luminous in a way that had nothing to do with light. I read the case files, she said after we Saturday, the ones your lawyer sent me. I nodded. She lied about everything. She always did, I said. Leah looked at me for a long time. Why didn't you believe me back then? I swallowed hard. I was afraid of what the truth would mean. For her. No. For me, I admitted. If you were right, then I was wrong. About the woman I married. About the life I built. About everything. She leaned back. I guess we both paid for that mistake. We talked for hours. About old dreams. About how her first business crumbled under the weight of Cassandra's sabotage. About how she rebuilt, brick by brick, in Philadelphia, far from Manhattan, far from me. And we talked about us. The way things might have been if I hadn't turned away when she needed me most. I still think about that day, Leah said quietly. When you walked into the hearing and wouldn't look at me. I couldn't, I said. You broke something in me. I nodded. And still, she added, you're the only one I ever wanted to tell the truth to. That's when I finally asked her. Can we start again? She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just reached across the table and took my hand. And somehow, that was more than enough. 3 weeks passed. The divorce was finalized. Margaret threw a small office celebration, champagne, sharp grins, and a toast that ended with, "May justice never be polite again." Cassandra disappeared from the tabloids. No one came to her defense. The world moved on without her. And I finally moved out of the penthouse, too many shadows, too many echoes. I bought a place in Brooklyn Heights. Nothing extravagant. Just clean lines and big windows. Leah visited a few days later. She brought pastries. I like it, she said, walking barefoot across the hardwood. It feels like someone real lives here. But closure is never clean. A month after the dust settled, I received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. It was from Cassandra. You once asked me why. Why I did it. Why I used Olivia. Why I tried to break you. The truth is, I didn't know how to be loved without control. You made me feel powerless. That terrified me. So I destroyed you before you could ever abandon me. But here's the thing about power, Jack. You only ever really have it when you stop needing it. I hope you find peace. I never will. I read it twice. Then I burned it. Some people believe revenge brings closure. They're wrong. Revenge is a fire. It keeps you warm long enough to survive the winter, but it doesn't plant spring. That comes later, when you choose growth over rage, truth over silence, peace over pride. For me, spring came quietly. No dramatic declarations. No final courtroom battles. Just Leah beside me one morning, barefoot and laughing at the dog we adopted from a Brooklyn shelter. Just the sound of jazz coming through the speakers and a new blueprint on my desk, for a wellness center we were opening together in Philly. That was my real victory. Not beating Cassandra, but finally being the man I could have been all along. And sometimes, late at night, I still think about how close I came to losing it all. How easily love can become leverage. How fast trust can rot when you stop watering it. But mostly, I think about what Margaret said the day we filed the suit. You can forgive the past, Jack. But you don't have to invite it back inside. I didn't. I let it go. And for the first time in years, I finally knew what it felt like to be free.